Waycross presents an election forum, the United States Representative for Ohio's 8th Congressional District. There are two candidates running for one open position. The candidates are, in alphabetical order, Warren Davidson, Vanessa Enoch.
Welcome to another Waycross election forum. This forum is for the representative to Congress in the 8th District. I'm Dana Gagnon, Government Programming Coordinator for Waycross Community Media. And I have one candidate in the studio here with me today, Dr. Vanessa Enoch. Thank you for being here. Representative Warren Davidson was invited to participate. He said he had to be in DC this evening and he was unable to join us. We will start with each candidate's 2-minute opening statement. But before we do that, if you are watching this live on September 21st, you will be able to email me your question here in the studio. I will get it right here, and I will be able to ask your question for you. If you are watching it live and you would like to send me a question, the email address should be on your screen. It's live@waycross.org. If that's not on your screen, you're not watching it live, so don't send me an email. There are some rules for these. When you send your email, please include your name, your street address, and your community. I will not read those on the air. We just want to make sure that the questions are coming from someone in the 8th District. And questions must be phrased for all candidates, not targeted at one candidate in particular. Now, before we get to our 2-minute opening statement in the studio, we do have a recorded opening statement from Warren Davidson, and we are going to take a listen to that first.
Hi, I'm Congressman Warren Davidson. I've served in Congress since 2016. After John Boehner resigned as Speaker of the House, I won a competitive primary and now serve on the House Financial Services and on the Select Committee on the Economy. After high school, I enlisted in the infantry and was sent to Germany. I got to meet people who were experiencing their first hours of freedom after the Berlin Wall fell, and my chain of command sent me to West Point. After that, I returned to the Army Infantry, served in the Old Guard, the 75th Ranger Regiment, and the 101st Airborne Division. After my time in the Army, my wife Lisa and I moved back to Ohio and raised our 2 kids, who are now young adults. And I started my own company and went to Notre Dame and picked up a Master of Business Administration. For the next 15 years, I started, grew, and acquired manufacturing companies here in Ohio. And when I got the chance to, in a way, sort of return to active duty, one of my priorities was to confront our broken trade policies. I mean, I experienced them firsthand as a manufacturing guy. I saw the consequences for families and for business owners, but for our overall economy. And so we got to deal with that with the Trump administration with an update to NAFTA called USMCA, to confront China with the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. And the policies of the Joe Biden administration have been disastrous for us. They've really reversed course on a number of fronts where we were having success. Trade's one of them, national security is another, the border's another. He's not going to change course on his own. So I'm asking very humbly for your vote and for your support to help us take back the House so that we can restore national security, a strong economy that combats inflation, and really is built on the foundation that is making America the world's land of opportunity. Thank you.
And now we're going to take a minute to hear the opening statement from Dr. Vanessa Enoch.
Hi there. My name again is Vanessa Enoch. I am a mom, a business owner, and a concerned Ohio citizen. I'm running for the U.S. House of Representatives because I believe that we deserve a representative who will stand for the rights of the people and not for big corporations, big banks, big business, and big pharma. We're heading into a very critical time in our country. We're looking down the road at economic challenges. We're struggling right now and being crushed here at home with rising inflation and cost. We're dealing with worker shortages and all sorts of things that we have to be concerned about. One of the scariest things for me as a woman is the Dobbs decision. When I decided to run for office, I saw something on Twitter that said men decide the fate of women's health care. There were no young people in the room. There were no women in the room. There were no people of color. And at that point, I thought, we need representation. But more importantly is what came out of that room, the decision that came out of that room. They decided not to cover women's maternity care. And for women who understand what it cost to cover maternity care, we understand that to not cover women's maternity care was critical. It was crucial. But the men in that room decided that day to cover Viagra because they were there to represent their personal interest. I'm not going to Washington, D.C. with any special agenda or to fight for my personal interest. I'm going to D.C. to fight for you at home and for the causes that you care about. Things like inflation, curing cancer, and those kinds of things. So thank you, Dana, for having me.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I know these times go by really fast, but we're going to see how many different questions we can fit in. Reminder, if you're watching this live on September 21st, you can email me your questions. And before I check that, I just want to get started with an introductory question. What do you think, and we'll have 3 minutes for this, we'll do more. What do you think are the top 3 issues that are facing Congress today?
I think wages, making sure that people have a livable wage, our economy. I think a big issue facing Congress is women's bodily autonomy. And I think that the border crisis is an issue that we have to deal with right now. As far as the economy is concerned, people are being crushed by inflation. And I understand what it's like to struggle. I also understand what it's like to win. And I want to see people in our district win. And the only way we're going to win is if someone goes to Congress who understands what it's like to deal with everyday challenges. My opponent doesn't understand. He comes from a well-to-do family. I was the first in my family to ever graduate from college. And as a result of that, I decided to continue. I got my master's degree in business administration. I did a PhD in public policy. So I understand how to balance a budget, and I understand what it takes to create good public policy.
Let me follow up with a question about what is unique about your skills and experience that you're going to be bringing to Congress.
So when my husband died in 2008, I raised my children as a single parent. So I understand what struggling as a single parent looks like. I understand what it's like to struggle as a married woman. I understand what everyday families are facing across our district. We're a working class district. My opponent comes from a well-to-do family. He's had everything handed to him on a silver platter. I think what will be different about me is the fact that I care. I care about things like justice and fairness. I care about making sure that we're taking care of the bread and butter issues. We're taking care of the needs of the people here at home. So I'll listen. I'll consider the challenges. I'll consider the things that the constituents bring to me. And I think that'll be very different because right now in Washington, D.C., what we've dealt with over the past 6 years since my opponent's been in office is more of the same. We haven't seen a whole lot of changes here at home. We thought we were getting a tax break when my opponent a few years ago signed off on the great tax scam. And since that time, the citizens here at home have seen diminishing returns on our tax returns. Some of us are owing more. And I think that the current administration has taken those things into consideration. But the challenge is that there are people sitting in those congressional seats that really have no earthly idea, and they don't care. They've been bought and paid for by special interest groups, and their voting record shows it. They're voting in favor of banks, which drives up the cost of borrowing money for home ownership and for things like investing in businesses.
Excellent. Well, thank you for answering that. That helps us. These are the questions that just help us get to know you first. We do actually have a question that came in on email, and we'll use my parts of my glasses so we can see if I can read it for you. Caitlin, who is from Butler County, north of us in the district, would like to ask, how do you respond to the recent changes in the definition to women's health care? And I'll give you 2 minutes for this one.
So essentially with the Dobbs decision, what it did was to undermine the fact that the government derives its power from the consent of the governed, not the other way around. What basically happened in that decision is it took away a woman's right to decide what she does with her own body. It took away a woman's and her doctor's power to make medical decisions for her. And I think it's a slippery slope. I mean, what's next? Are we going to be exposed to forced, we're already now being forced to give birth. Are we going to be forced to be sterilized at some point in the future? What's next? When you take away the individual right to choose and make decisions for herself, you've now undermined a woman's statehood. Those are unalienable rights that were given to us by God to decide what we do with our bodies. But now we're being subjected to a government that now gets to decide what we do, what medical care we get to have. And I believe that women should have the ability to control her own body. I don't think that any government should be able to tell me how to govern my medical decisions or any of those kinds of things. So it is deeply concerning to me, this new court decision. But another thing that court decision did is it undid over 50 years of legislation that will impact us in a myriad of ways going forward. We have to be concerned with not just this idea of a woman's right to choose, but fairness and justice and those kinds of things as it relates to every aspect of our lives and our children's lives going forward. It actually gave our children fewer rights than we had when we were coming up.
Thank you for answering that. Thank you, Caitlin, for sending in your question. If you are also watching this live on September 21st and you have a question, you can send it to me in the studio while I'm live and I can ask your question also. But now that I've reminded folks that, the email address is live@waycross.org if you are watching it live. Another question that I have here in front of me is about environmental measures. Can you talk about what you think the federal government can do to take care of the environment and how you would balance that with the need to support businesses?
I think we're going in the right direction with this most recent infrastructure bill. We need to rebuild our infrastructure. Our infrastructure is already aging, and climate change poses a significant risk. We are already seeing fires raging out of control, weather changes that our infrastructure is not ready for, and various kinds of things like drought across the country. So I think we're heading in the right direction, and as long as we're able to replace some of the individuals who are in Congress who don't believe in climate change, like my opponent, I think all of us here at home, those of us who aren't sold out to big business and those kinds of things, I think all of us here at home recognize that climate is changing. We recognize that weather patterns have changed. And I think that what we have to do is consider our farmers, consider the businesses that might be impacted by this, and make sure that we provide supports for them. Make sure that regulation doesn't become a burden for them. And I think that when we can do those kinds of things and balance our policy decisions, that we'll be making the right decisions and moving in the right direction. We'll continue moving in the right direction.
Now, I do have another question here. Someone has asked me, what do you think is the best way to make sure that everyone can access health care? And how do you think that should be funded?
I think we need a healthcare system that, we need Medicare for all. We need a healthcare system that will take care of our folks who are now long haulers from this pandemic that we've faced. Businesses have been heavily burdened with insurance costs, and many employees are choosing not to even go with their employer-funded health care. I think the Affordable Care Act was a good next step, but we have to continue to expand that to make sure we lower pharmaceutical costs. And some of that has been done in this most recent legislation, but we have to continue to look at our healthcare system and all of the ways that our healthcare system is failing, and impact them in those direct areas. For example, one of the things that we learned about our healthcare system is that they couldn't bargain. They couldn't negotiate prices. The government couldn't negotiate prices because of the legislation that was in place. Well, that's changing, and we want to make sure that those kinds of things are, continue to move in that direction and that we don't revert backwards. We also want to make sure that our healthcare challenges that we face as a nation, that individuals' needs are taken care of here at home. And people are so heavily burdened with their healthcare costs that people are choosing between buying groceries for the week and buying their medicines, and that shouldn't happen. It's not fair. And as a taxpayer, if there was a system in place, and as a business owner as well, if there was a system in place where we could ensure that things like pandemics, when they come up, that our workforce is going to be they're going to be healthy. People are going to have access to the care that they need. They're going to have access to affordable medicines. They're going to be able to get their injections. We can keep the entire community safe.
I do have another question that's come in from Butler County into my email, so thanks Butler County for watching us. The question is, how can the federal government support public transportation infrastructure?
So I think as far as public transportation is concerned, that that's something that generally is handled here locally. But there are opportunities to implement various types of transportation access that I think here in the greater Cincinnati area that we've been trying to do for a very long time, and that is impacting mass transportation, rail service. There have been proposals on the table to have mass transportation all the way from Cincinnati to Cleveland. That would be a great start, because that would open up the opportunity for places that have not had industry or opportunity for industry to have those opportunities. Some of our rural areas that don't have rail transportation or any other transportation for that matter, it would open up that opportunity, and it could grow our infrastructure in such a way that industry could also benefit from that mass transportation. So that's something that the federal government can do.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for your question, Caitlin, in Butler County. I appreciate that. And if you are also watching this live, whether you're in Butler County or Hamilton County, and it's September 21st, then you can send me an email live@waycross.org, and I can ask your question as well. Actually, we're getting towards the end of that time, so if you're saving your questions, send it fast. I do want to ask you if you think there are issues that both parties can work towards in Congress. We're not seeing a lot of that right now. So I've got questions from a couple different people that are related somewhat to this. And basically, can you work with representatives from the other party on projects?
I think if the powers that be can keep us thinking red and blue, it'll give them the opportunity to continue stealing our green. I'm wearing a purple jacket today. I believe that it's important that we reach across the aisle and that we talk to one another. There are good ideas that come from both sides of the aisle. And I think that, it's important to consider voices on both sides of the aisle. I'm not a red or blue thinker. I was married to a Republican. I am a Democrat. And we had ideas that were different all the time, but I think bringing those ideas together helped us come up with good, decisions in running our household. And I think that as it relates to what's happening in Washington, D.C., that conversation is long overdue. We should have been, coming to the table to talk and negotiate. And I think when you have extremists in Washington, and let me be clear, my opponent is an extremist. He is a far right-wing extremist, and I'm not making any apologies for saying that. I think it's important because we've had discussions during debates at times when they've asked the question, can you work across the aisle? And he was clear and said no, he would not. And I think it's important to keep that in mind. We're dealing with somebody who does not believe in the rule of law. He does not believe in, reaching across the aisle. He doesn't believe in negotiating and coming to a consensus. And I think that those are the ideas that America is founded upon. And so, yes, absolutely, I can reach across the aisle. I can, make good decisions, good policy decisions that take various interests and concerns into consideration.
Okay, great. Thank you for answering that. I appreciate your, we have viewers watching this and getting their questions answered, so I really appreciate your time on this. We're getting really close to the end. I want to make sure you have time for a 2-minute closing statement. So I will go ahead and set this timer, and you can go ahead and do that.
So again, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I appreciate you here at home for giving me the opportunity to tell you a little bit about who I am. As I started out explaining, I am a mom. I am a concerned citizen. I am someone who understands what it means to balance a budget, to make a dollar stretch. I also understand that those who work the hardest don't always have access to the best life. Working hard in America doesn't necessarily mean that you'll do well or that you'll have more, and it shouldn't be that way. No one should have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to live a decent life. My family struggled, but we made it. My daughters are adults now. My oldest completed college and now works in finance at a large technology company. My younger daughter's currently in college. I don't have any special agenda, as I mentioned, in going to Washington, D.C., other than serving the people. My only objective is to fight for working people and for families. In 2018, my opponent said that corporate donations are a form of speech. Well, I don't like what money has to say, especially when it means putting profits over the needs of us working people. I'm asking for your help in telling voters that they have a real chance or a real choice for change this year. You can volunteer with our campaign by going to enochforcongress.com. I don't believe that the person that I'm running against is the person that should be representing this district. He's an election denier. On January 6th, he voted to overturn the presidential election in the 2020 presidential election. And I truly believe that we need someone in Congress who believes in our country, that believes in our freedoms, that believes in justice, that believes in fairness, and who will stand for the needs and the rights of the people that they serve. And I want to do that. Again, my name is Vanessa Enoch, and I hope to go to Congress in Washington, D.C. to serve you as the constituent here at home. Thank you.
Dr. Enoch, I want to thank you for joining us this evening. We have already run right up to the end, so I'm just going to go very quickly and thank you for watching as well. If you need more information about this or any of the other programs that we covered for election forums, you can watch them online at www.waycross.tv. You can also go to the Hamilton County Board of Elections website to make sure you're registered. Look at a sample ballot, check your voting location, votehamiltoncounty.ohio.gov. If you're watching this show in Butler County or any of the other counties for this district, you can also just go to voteohio.gov, and that will get you the same information. You can register to vote, get your address up to date there. Registration ends October 11th. Early voting begins on October 12th. And I'm Dana Gagnon, Waycross Government Programming Coordinator, and I will see you at the polls on November 8th.
Waycross takes no position on candidates or issues. We conduct these forums so that our viewers may be better informed voters for the November 8th elections.